was. Yeah.
And we're live.
We are not. We're so Isaiah has just said that like he's going to be on his first podcast later on tonight at like 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Fluid Voices with Osmos in the Dark, co-hosting, who's in the live chat right now. But Isaiah, your first podcast, you don't include us. How dare you? Uh-oh, drama to start the 200th show.
Oh, no.
Yes. Welcome to the 200th episode of Social Justice Alchemy. My God, there's been 200 of them. Wow. And yes, on the Alchemy bench, it's the usual regulars, irregulars, and me, Summer and the Geek, John Brockman. There's not the cat. That cat is Sasha, but John Brockman's behind the microphone, behind the camera, where the camera's pointed at the cat Sasha, because well, cat, as it were. And
so wants to look at white guy when you can look at a cat.
Yes, and there's speaking of white guy, our guest today is Steve Shaw, but also Isaiah Taylor too, and the rest. Yes, yes, exactly, and the rest. So welcome everyone. How's everyone been?
Good.
Yeah,
just terrific.
Well, not entirely. You did recently suffer a little bit.
I did.
Yeah, you lost your audio.
Oh, I did. Yeah. I did. Thanks for
cat.
Bringing that up, John.
Well, I mean, it's important.
Oh, I almost forgot to mention my dead cat. Oh, good luck. Good thing John's here to bring that up. No, that is true. And yes, that was. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm not thinking about it as much. So it's I'm sort of transitioning into, well, this is just normal now. But yeah, that was rough. But it is what it is.
As someone who's lost now both parents, I guess you just realize that death is going to happen no matter what we do. So you just
I finally realized that at age 42.
I guess you just need to accept it. Although it depends on who you talk to, because some people could be pretty condescending about it. So
well, there's some people, it's hard to talk to. But like in the anime Gungutsu Kanamon Crystal, death is certain. It's time uncertain. And yes, that is Kanamon Crystal.
Indeed.
Yes, there's an anime Kanamon Crystal. Yes, like the Alexander Dumas novel, as it were. It's actually quite good, very different. And the end. Yes. Well, Emily Chambers in chat. Hello, Emily Chambers. Hello, Asma Doc. Hello, Nekrika. Hello, Jordan P. Hello, Mithro. Hello, Joe McClory in the chat too. Well, Emily Chambers says, "How do we know that John isn't a cat?" There you go. We just proved John is a cat. So, Steve, it's been 3 years since we last talked. Oh,
it's I think
actually it's been about 3 minutes, but
yeah. Well, that's
Okay,
since I've been your guest, it's been a few years. Yeah.
And so the question on everybody's mind, Steve and Stuffy, when are those two going to shut up and fuck?
What Stuffy does or doesn't do in his own private time is Stuffy's business, and it's not for me.
When is Steve going to get stuffed is what I'm asking.
When it's actually, I did a video years and years ago that I actually did that came out of just a random conversation that I had with Jason, where he was still doing his Opinionville videos, and he did a segment at the end of his videos where he would like respond to questions that people would ask in the comments. And so I just as a joke, like, I left a comment to Jason I think it was him and it was Puppet Jason. It was Jason and Puppet Jason. So it was like the weirdest possible combination. I said, "Dear Jason and Puppet Jason, kiss each other. Just do it. Kiss each other." So Jason came back at me and said, "I'll do that if you do a video where you and Stuffy kiss." So I did it, but I realized after I shot it that I had kissed Stuffy in the video without first obtaining his consent. So I had to go back, because I think it's me and Stuffy had like an argument in the video about it, and he was like, "I don't want to do that," and I was like, "All right, fine." So I I like stand up and walk away, but then I come back and I lay one on him. And as I was editing it, I was like, I don't like that. That feels like I'm forcing a kiss on him. So I added Stuffy. I gave Stuffy an extra line right before I come back in where he says, "Oh, all right." So, so it's like, okay, it's not as creepy anymore, but I had that moment of like, oh shit, I forgot to write it so that the dog that I'm kissing says it's okay.
See, writers, that's how easy it is. Just add one line of dialogue, and then suddenly it's fine. It's consensual.
But then you have to edit it out for China. I mean,
then you just then the video just has no point. People are just watching it going, what was that about?
That's a non sequitur. So that's the part.
It's a non sequitur. That sounds worse.
So yes, Steve, that's how you've been. Is like recovering from the grief of like losing your cat, Audie, as we're that is sad. I lost both my dogs, and it's just like thankfully they died at home, but like it's hard. It eventually time heals all wounds, unless you have a rash. Then you're just better off with ointment.
Well, and I mean it's the craziest thing because like Isaiah was saying about how, now like death feels real. And it is like, no matter how many times you go through it, at least this has been my experience. Like no matter how many times you go through it with whether it's with a pet or whether it's with people, like you never really believe it's going to happen until it happens. And I think maybe that's just like a coping mechanism. It's just our way of dealing with it. You're just like, well, I'm just not going to think about it. But yeah, it's like, when you get a pet, that this is how it's going to end. You know this intellectually because nobody lives forever, but for some reason you never really feel that it's actually going to happen until it happens.
Unless all your pets are goldfish, in which case you're just getting used to it after a while.
That's the reason I stopped having goldfish. I had goldfish years ago, and it just got too depressing. I was like, no, I'm not good enough at this to keep them alive for very long. So I'm just not going to do this anymore. This is too depressing.
It's when my first cat died, I wasn't expecting it. I came home from the gym. I was like, okay, got to call the vet. She's been looking pretty scruffy. And then I find her curled up in a box, and she's cold. And I just, for about an hour there, I was fucking lost. But,
well, yeah, of course.
With my second cat, I mean, she'd been having a rough day. Took her to the vet. She still had a rough day. Took her to a different vet because it was like 12 o'clock at night. She'd been having seizures, basically. So I knew that one was coming, so it wasn't quite as devastating, but it was not great.
No, not great at all. I mean, I had not seen Audie for a while because after Ashley and I split up, Audie stayed with Ashley. But according to Ashley, like until that day, Audie had been fine. You know what I mean? Like she at least outwardly, obviously she wasn't fine, but outwardly she had been fine. Like she had been behaving normally and, was running around and jumping on stuff and just being her usual self. And then it just happened very, very quickly, So, I mean, she was 16, so that kind of thing.
Fortunately, my older sibling was like home when like our first dog, I think it was Bilbo, that died. But fortunately, like the second one, Adria, died like within 2 months, as it were. It's like, but like my older sibling was just like lying next to the Bilbo, the cold body with their hand on it, hoping that they'll rise again, the Bilbo will breathe again. That didn't happen. So and hey Jamie, hey Gaming Gay, it's nice to see you again.
It's me, Jamie. It's me.
But like we got like patrons to thank. 200 episodes and people will still give us money for this kind of thing that we do, I guess. So off of my memory, and John Brockman can like
Marty, Tim, Evie, Vonrek, Flora, and the Fuckboys.
And the fuckboys, which includes me and like Mehmet, as it were. Mehmet, I think, is a self-appointed fuckboy because he is like a bisexual slut, and I'm fine with like being called fuckboy, as it were. I give consent to being called a fuckboy.
Oh, and Joe. Can't forget Joe.
Hey Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand?
Hey.
I still love that.
Great song.
It is a great song, and that's Isaiah. I saw that you were showing that off in like the CHI Patreon hangout. Is that like a framed photo of like
Nichelle Nichols?
Michelle Nichols says like,
Yeah, it's
Uhura.
her.
she almost left it for me for $40. So I
Mhm.
got I at least got one of them from the old Star Trek. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Speaking of Star Trek, okay, so I'm sorry, Steve. I'm a terrible
Star Trek.
friend, and
No.
I haven't been cut up with all of your YouTube videos, as it were.
God damn it.
I mean, well, I'm sure you haven't seen it in my YouTube videos. And
Yeah, but there's such things as double standards, so I'm gonna hold it against you.
but I kind of like, you know what? I have 45 minutes to kill. Like, oh, Imposter Shipment, your latest video essay that you put up like last Wednesday. I thought it was well done and very interesting, because I wanted to say to myself, I kind of suffer from that a bit too. It's like, it's that kind of thing where it's just like, honestly, when I cracked my egg and like was questioning my gender for about a week, as it were, that was one of the things that was like in my mind, as it were, of like, it's okay for me to come out as non-binary. It was a Ben Shapiro voice in the back of my head. It's like, oh, you just want to identify as non-binary to make yourself feel official, as where they just show, oh, I'm this strong of a trans ally because, like, look at me, I'm non-binary, so I'm like one of you.
No, it's because you're a socialist, and that's what you have to do. Being a socialist turns you.
I mean, a lot of my socialists and communists and anarchist friends happen to be also be queer or disabled and or neurodivergent, but like, so I did actually enjoy that video, Steve. That's what I'm just saying. You're our guest, so you should be able to talk as well. But I have to take questions for you.
Well, no, I'm glad you.
Oops.
Ooh.
For my birthday, my brother got me 20 pounds of Chex Mix.
Oh, happy birthday!
wow.
That is, oh man! Now I could go for some Chex Mix. God damn!
Sasha found the camera and Sasha's movie.
Well, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad you liked that video. That was something that somebody commissioned from me, and I had never really thought about it before. I've never really struggled with imposter syndrome myself, and I chalk that up to the fact that I have too large of an ego, and also I've never been successful enough.
Oh, you're a cis-het white guy. Obviously, it's not a problem.
I've never had if I will. A lot of the people I know personally who have talked about feeling like an imposter or struggling with those kinds of feelings are people who have also dealt with things like depression. And it's sort of part and parcel of that. And again, fortunately, I've never really had to deal with that. And also, like you were saying, like trans people or people who are, questioning their sexuality or their gender identity, some of those issues come up. I'm
still questioning it, honestly.
Yeah, and there, and I guess to a degree, if it's within a certain range and it doesn't negatively affect your life, it's probably a good thing sometimes to be like, is this really who I am? Is this who I should be? Is this what I should be doing? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's healthy. But it's when you get to the point where, like, if you do attain some level of success or happiness, you can't let yourself enjoy it because you're like, I don't deserve this. This isn't, this doesn't really belong to me. Something's going to happen, or somebody's going to find out something about the real me, and I'm going to lose this. And because I don't really deserve it. And exactly.
What skeletons in your closet do you have?
But so I've never attained enough. Like if I win the lottery, I'm sure I'll have like a whole bunch of imposter syndrome.
On YouTube. You have a plaque sitting right next to you.
I do. Yeah.
It's
just a silver one though. Like it's, they hand those out outside the mall now. I mean,
well, it's kind of interesting because like I was on my friend's stream last night, the Necronomicon, playing golf with your friends, and I mentioned that like you're coming on, and as my special guest Steve Shives. Oh, cool. Who is Steve Shives?
Yeah. And see, and that's what I assume. Like I don't assume that anybody knows who I am. Which again is I think is a healthy thing. Like it's not, I'm Steve Shives from YouTube. Nobody knows. Nobody gives a shit, and they shouldn't.
I have a podcast. You mean like Joe Rogan?
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Joe Rogan, like February or like months ago, Corey Johnson invited me onto his podcast, Minus Skeptileptus, or his YouTube channel, Twitch channel, as a panel of talk about left unity, and it was like Ben Bursch is on there, that people know him from like the Majority Report or the Michael Brooks Show, and like he does his own podcast. But and it was like Justin Clark, who does reviews with Corey Johnson, and Anarchist on YouTube, as it were, and then the sixth person, Janice, who just local like a DSA stuff, or DSC for Canada, because it's in Saskatchewan, like with Corey. And Janice said, like, I did the bad thing of like looking all you up on like the internet, and you have way more clout than me. And I don't have clout. No, please, yeah. I don't have clout. Yes,
no, you don't have clout. You have $20,000 in credit card debt.
$22,000 in credit card debt, and like approaching 20. It's up to $23,000.
That's like the opposite of clout.
Yeah, exactly. That's like, well, for me, it's just like with that kind of clout, though, that does come some responsibility, as it were, and that's something that like I think one has to be mindful of, especially if like they decide to attack someone on Twitter, for example, because Twitter is Twitter. It's like yes, people talk about Twitter mobs, and that's probably a thing. I also say, but what about Twitter feeding those mods? But like, but also another thing with like imposter syndrome for me is just like I also feel like I don't do enough. It was in like activism, as it were. And hey, Lucidia, nice to see you there.
Oh, you can't see me.
Right. Yeah, you're a cat now. You can't. Cats can't wave, or at least your avatar can. But it's kind of like, I know that I'm just doing charity. They're giving money to Joanna Roberts and like giving money to Phoenix. By the way, charity links that page. That clashes with my images of what an activist or revolutionary is out in the streets with the like freedom potion or like throwing a brick through the window. And I kind of, in my mind at least,
because you're just a liberal, Steve. Freedom potion means Molotov cocktails. Just
oh, is that what that is?
We call them freedom potions. Yes, we can also call them Molotov cocktails, and you can definitely mess up and make a Molotov cocktail and just burn yourself, as it were. So do be careful of like how you do it and how you throw it too. But like I have to like be reminded, and thankfully many people have, like, no, Jonathan, you do enough. So what if you just like all you do is like work 60 hours a week and then give money to like your friends? No, you're doing plenty. I probably give too much money because again, $23,000 of credit card debt, and it's I guess.
Well, like, I mean, I think that's like I've told you before. I mean, it's. I think it's a good impulse that you have to feel like I should be doing more. You know what I mean? Like I would rather people feel that way than feel like, to hell with other people. I don't need to do anything to help. You know what I mean? Like it's better to have one than the other. But like, I do think it's also okay, especially if you are already doing a lot, to let yourself off the hook. You know what I mean? To give yourself a break and to say, I mean, because of course you're a caring, empathetic person. You see people, especially people that you're friends with, but even people like just, broader in society who are having a hard time. You want to help and you wish you could do more. And maybe you feel like maybe I could do more if I did less of this or whatever. Like that's completely understandable and a good, like it does you credit to feel that way. But it's not your responsibility to fix everything.
Oh, yeah.
But that can be tough.
Your responsibility because you got the plaque.
It's my responsibility because I have 100,000 YouTube subscribers. It's my responsibility. 130,000. That's right. That's right.
Do you guys think I spend too much money on costumes?
Nope.
No. This comes back to like you're asking me, and this was a topic we have, like, is it against socialism to buy, like you showed off in like the Patreon hangout earlier this morning, like that, like a ship lamp, as it were, where it actually makes the noise, a ching ching. It's like I'm not big into like that kind of thing, but I could get at that too, because like, just like in Titanic, as it were.
Well, that's why I like Titanic, because I like just how practical the sets were.
Oh yeah,
I know Steve doesn't like it. I don't know. Like, there's like movies that for a lot of people that like is part of them. I guess Titanic is part of me because this was the first Hollywood movie I probably saw.
Yeah, exactly.
And I told my mom that if I do good in school, could I get this movie? And she said yes. So yeah.
Yeah.
And I was really into ships back then too. So
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
one thing I'll always give Titanic, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this when Jason and I did it on late seating. It's a fantastically directed movie.
Yes.
Like it has its problems, and I don't think I gave it a very positive review when we did it on the show. But I mean,
I did laugh.
it's an incredibly well directed film.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, that's the one thing that's like I can always give to James Cameron, like like Avatar. My problems was like unatanium and the white savior narrative, and it's just like, but
Yeah.
I can't wait till he folds Titanic into the Terminator and Aliens universes. And
I know.
Avatar, like
Exactly. Make it all one thing. It would
No,
be
no,
so easy. He's already got time travel. He could do it so easily.
turn Kate
Well,
Winslet into a Terminator, and she goes into the Avatar
now you're
universe.
talking. and she goes back to the Titanic, and she
She saves
hands-
Jack. God damn it!
She puts her hand out and says, "Come with me if you want to live." And then he reaches out, and she goes, "Psych!" and she goes back to the future. Just kidding.
I mean, okay, Aliens is apparently part of the Blade Runner universe because like same author and like Ridley Scott are created for people, and it's like, okay, I guess that means that like of the Aliens Blade Runner universe, there's only four good movies in that universe. Blade Runner 2049. I'm counting Blade Runner as one movie, and I'm not going to go into like separate
All the different cuts. Yeah.
As Alien and Aliens are the only good movies in that franchise.
Yeah. I take a very Tommy Westphall universe approach to things, which is if you can come up with a story that involves two completely unrelated movies being in the same world, then just do it. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? If you're like super, because they used to do it in comics. So whenever like the Star Trek license would pass from one comic company to the other, it would always be kind of different. And they like when they did when Marvel Comics got it in the 90s, they did like Star Trek and X-Men crossovers, and it was like, yeah, why the hell not? Like,
Dr. McCoy, yes.
Yeah, like why not? Or they did they did Star Trek and Transformers a couple years ago with the current with IDW, the current, and that was cool. It was like, just lighten up. Like, if you can come up with a story, just do it.
I have a comic book where it is Star Trek and X-Men. It's the Enterprise E crew, and they're dealing with the X-Men crew. So
The E crew and the X-Men. That's a lot of drugs.
Now, yes, I know, Joe McClure, forget about The Abyss. I actually still like the movie.
James
Abyss.
Cameron really likes showing women's tits in his movies.
but my favorite comic book is this. This is
Calvin and Hobbes. The creator of Calvin and Hobbes. So much marketing and merchandising capabilities of like the Hobbes plushie and the Hobbes stuffed animal. He never done that.
Yeah.
And it would have been fitting, but he never sold out in that way. And
he
was
refused to merchandise. He hated it.
Yeah, he's very reclusive, actually.
And there's something very respectable about someone like that who he attained a great deal of success. Like Calvin and Hobbes was a really, really popular strip, and those books, that like Isaiah has, like they sell like crazy. But of a guy like that who reaches a level of success and he says, you know what, I have enough money.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to merchandise it beyond a certain level and just to get richer. Like I'm doing okay.
But yeah, you gotta like respect it. Just like, you know what, I'm good.
I'm not Jim Davis.
Oh my God, who is? What other cartoonist has ever taken it to that level where he's like, no, seriously, put Garfield's face on everything.
Garfield on pizza. There's Garfield on pizza.
Like, does he
I'm
even like
surprised
pizza?
that Disney hasn't bought it. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Jim Davis, they can't meet Jim Davis's asking price, I think, is the problem there.
Is this really worth it? Honestly, for Disney, they already got Marvel and Star Wars. Why do they need Garfield too?
Do we need Garfield?
They have the Muppets too.
Jim Davis is like, I'll throw in U.S. Acres too, and they're like, I don't know.
Another good book that I have.
Oh, it's like, what is that? The Millennium Year by Year.
Millennium Year by Year.
No,
Picture
they
Day.
never. Never read that. Uh,
As you can tell, I guess I'm just pretty out there. I guess.
Again, Isaiah,
That's fine.
I know you constantly ask this because of like your own imposter syndrome of being on the autism spectrum and always need that validation. So I totally get it. But no, Isaiah, it's totally cool that you're as weird as you are. Welcome to the weirdness in this group, as it were.
Okay.
Is
For real. I'm sitting in front of Batman and Catwoman doll, for God's sake.
And
with the
let's not
whole
forget
Star
the
Trek-
dresser in the back.
and all the Star Trek, yeah. But specifically the Catwoman and Batman dolls. I just got those a few years ago. I had the exact same dolls when I was like a kid.
Mhm.
And then I lost them in one of the various when I moved out of my parents' house. Like I don't know what happened to the ones I had. So I went on eBay and rebought them because I wanted to have them. So
How weird would it be if those were the same two you lost?
that's the same ones. I'm like, hey, this box looks like it's been opened.
I mean, Isaiah, you're talking to a pirate, Summer and a Geek now. Dress pirate, Summer and a Geek. Dress shirt.
And I'm a
pirate, Summer
cat.
and
I mean,
well, who isn't a cat? Is one
Republicans. Republicans aren't allowed to be cats.
Right, exactly. Cats
Or
are
dogs.
anarchists anyway. Yes, cats, like the General Strike cat, like General Strike gets direct action gets good cat, like Radical Union cat. Cats are anarchists. But one thing, quick.
Republicans are allowed to be leeches.
Yeah, don't disrespect leeches that way by comparing them to Republicans. Leeches actually use for like medical purposes. They can be used in medicine, so they're more useful than Republicans.
And presumably they do have some role to play in a natural ecosystem, whereas
Yes.
Republicans don't.
It's one quick thing I want to mention about like lead scening. Maybe I've already mentioned to you about like lead scening, but like I stick to like listening to like episodes of like the movies I have seen. Like I re-listened to the Goonies episode recently. It's like but I love when I was listening to or the Metropolis one because like you said, no, Metropolis is a great movie. Go see the Fritz Lang Metropolis. I agree.
Oh yeah.
Vertigo. When I heard that, I was like, finally! Because like I saw that as a kid, like in teenage years, or like in middle school, and I'm like, is this the greatest movie of all time?
So you're like on Jason's side.
I don't care about these characters. I don't care what Jamie Stewart is going through. It's like the only character I cared about was the blonde in glasses that had her own like art studio and was successful
Yes.
and similar, and totally had the hots for Jamie Stewart, but Jamie Stewart didn't care for her, and it's just like,
What is his deal? Yeah.
I know, Jamie Stewart. Why are you turning
That's-
down her?
That's one of those. I was trying to think of an example earlier of a movie that I absolutely loved and that Jason didn't like at all. And I think Vertigo is a pretty good example because Jason will still joke about it in other episodes. You know, like if Vertigo comes up, he'll stick a little cheap shot in about it because he really does not see the big deal about Vertigo. And I think it's
It
great.
had a dolly
but,
zoom.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can.
They named a camera shot after it. Everybody knows what a vertigo zoom is.
But that's the thing. Is just like it's not that like I hate like Alfred Hitchcock's like movies because like Notorious is good and that's a classic and sells.
Notorious is such a good movie.
I have some breaking news.
Okay.
Listen to this. Nichelle Nichols just died.
No.
Are you serious?
Is that?
Oh my God!
Let me refresh the Twitter.
Shit. Hold on.
Is because it would be I guess I'll have to like look it up because like
I'm seeing people posting about it on Twitter. Yeah.
Hasn't even made the news. That is really breaking. Damn.
Oh, and as you showed off,
Why
your
does Shatner
frame,
have to outlive her, not the other way around?
Shatner's gonna outlive them all. I'm telling you.
Shatner will outlive them all.
The day after George Takei dies, William Shatner will die. That's how it's going to go. William Shatner will hang on until a day after Takei dies, and then he'll give it up.
And then he'll also
I honestly
say,
think
my.
DeForest Kelly will live the longest.
Well,
I mean, the guy's
DeForest
basically
Kelly
just
died
whiskey.
DeForest Kelly died like 20 years ago, dude.
And he was definitely afraid that on his tombstone will be "He's dead, Jim."
Yeah. And he's like, but it doesn't make any sense. I'm the one who says that.
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
I just want to make sure it reads and it makes
Damn it,
sense.
Jim. I'm a doctor, not a beam me up.
I'm not a beam me up, Jim.
He's worse than dead. His brain is gone.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I hate
it.
What a great
2001.
episode.
Of course, we lost David Warner. We lost him.
Yeah.
We lost Paul Servino. He was also.
It's
in
yeah,
Star
that, yeah.
Trek.
He was in an episode of Star Trek.
I thought
too.
we
Yeah.
got away
Actually,
from
I think
the death part of the podcast. God.
I mentioned that. I mentioned that in the Goodfellas episode of Late Seating. Paul Sorvino for me is one of the weirdest Star Trek cameos ever because it's like Paul Sorvino from Goodfellas.
The guy from the early seasons of.
He's
the,
in.
Law and
He's
Order?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
in one episode of TNG from the last season, and and even as a kid, I'm watching it, thinking like, is that Paul Sorvino? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, he died a week
Worf's
ago.
adopted brother.
Yeah, he's Worf's brother. Yeah, exactly. And he's great. Like, he's Paul Sorvino. He's great. But it's like, what's he doing in Star Trek?
And then his daughter is a massive Star Trek fan, apparently.
Oh, that's
Or maybe
probably
that's why he did it. He's trying to impress
Was he
his
in a
movie star
holodeck
daughter.
episode?
Mira
Oh no, he
Sorvino.
was Worf's adopted brother. He would have been perfect.
He was.
For a
I mean,
holodeck
there was.
episode where they went back in time and did a mafia thing.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have said yes to that. Hey, Paul, we want you for Star Trek. You're playing a mobster. Oh, great. I don't get those scripts nearly enough.
I'm not typecast. I'm not typecast.
There's a scene where you cut Riker off and you give him some money while you're in the kitchen cooking up some peppers and sausages. I got to turn my back on you now, Commander Riker, and you just stuff some money in his pocket and take him away.
Well, he'll be good in Dixon Hill, So.
Yeah, that's true. He could have been like Nicky the Nose or something in
Right.
Dixon Hill.
Yeah.
He would have been great in Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. So Steve, what have you been up to lately? It's just like normal thing of like writing Star Trek videos, writing like
Pretty much.
other videos, watching Star Trek, and then just like do that again. Oh, what?
And
shows
complaining about
something-
Picard because you hate it because you don't love good things.
I'm because season 2 was terrible, but no, I've been going through this cycle of write videos, shoot videos, edit videos, and then take a couple of days where I kind of take it easy, and then I suddenly start to panic because I'm like, I don't have videos for next week, and then like
Heads
and
up,
then
everyone.
the cycle starts.
Steve invented the week.
Where I'm like, so, but yeah, like,
Go ahead. Let's say what's your question.
Yeah. No, I was saying, how do you keep How do you, as I guess, talking to a YouTuber who's like, for me, like up and coming, how do you like advise me to like stay motivated? Cause like I am motivated because I do the videos for free and for like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like me going to my normal job. It takes the fun out of everything. So how do you like stay motivated on something like that?
well, I mean,
yeah.
in my case, because
Quit your job and get
YouTube is
scared.
my yeah, but exactly. But in my case, because YouTube is my job, I mean, there is always sort of, the wolf will be at the door sooner or later. Like if I don't keep making videos, then I'm gonna have to find an actual job, and God, I don't want to do that. So I mean, there's like an economic motivation of I do it to pay the bills, but I've also I've been really lucky that I've never really felt burned out. Like there have been many times where I've felt overburdened by work, like I felt like I have too much to do, but I've never and that's not fun. Mm-hmm. But I've never gotten to the point where I'm like I don't feel motivated to do this, like I've always enjoyed the actual work for the most part. Like there's times when it sucks, but most of the time I enjoy the work, and so I don't need to be super motivated. But
also George Soros keeps cutting you those checks to destroy,
which help. It helps to have that. It helps to have that floor. You know what I mean? Like I know that I'll be okay, but all I have to do is just keep spewing that liberal propaganda, and I'll be fine.
And helping Star Trek put the gay stuff in,
put the gay stuff. It was my idea. Like I sent when I found out that they were doing a new Star Trek show, I just sent them an email and said put gay stuff in it, and they did, and I was like, that's just what I told you to do. So Thank you.
Yeah, I was just asking because I don't like I consider myself a hard worker, but I don't put the like I'm not toxic about it. How
Well,
I
that's
guess
good.
some of these YouTubers tend, but I want to say I'm jealous. Like whenever I see like good edits, like between you or Jesse Genders, I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. But it's like,
Oh, there are so many of Jesse's videos that I watch and think I should be that good. You know what I mean? Like, and again, it's not something that burdens me. I don't beat myself up over it and go, like, you piece of shit, why aren't you making videos like it? But she does videos that are often about the same kinds of topics that I talk about. And I'll watch one of
Star Trek.
We both like Star Trek, and but I'll watch one of her videos where she's got multiple costumes and she's playing different characters and she's come up with a scenario, and I'm watching it go, man, this is
5.5 hours. Like, what the?
Well, I would never do that. I would never. That's one part that I'm not. That's the part I'll watch one of Jesse's videos and I'll be like, why is this 5 hours long? This is absurd. But in terms of her ideas and her production values, like I'll watch it and think, man, I would. Part of it is I don't have time, like because I do 2 videos a week. I don't always have time to be like, okay, here's what it's going to be. And I'm going to light it this way. And I'm going to shoot it here and here and here. And it's going to be all these, I just don't have time to do it that way. And I wish that I did, because she's fantastic. And I admire a lot about her creativity and her production.
I'll probably send her a tweet on how she does all that. Like I feel like I can definitely do stuff like that, but I just feel like because I have plenty of Star Trek costumes. I have costumes galore, but it's like I don't have the time. I don't have the resources.
Jesse Jenner also has like a editor, someone that works for Jesse Jenner.
That's true.
Edit videos. So that's how she has more time to like do 6-hour-long videos.
She does what now?
She can script them and perform them, and then hand it over to someone else to edit.
Yeah.
And again, like I was saying to Geek earlier about feeling bad about not doing more in terms of helping people. It's okay to let yourself off the hook and say, I do, especially if you're doing YouTube because it's something you want to do and it's not your job. You're not relying on it to pay the bills. Whether you just haven't made a video for a while or you have an idea for a video, but you haven't gotten up to do it yet, or whatever the case is, like it's okay to give yourself a break and say, what, I don't need to do this right now. My worth as a person is not tied up in this, and then when you're doing it, you just tell yourself, I'm going to do the best job with this that I can, given my resources and my level of inspiration and whatever my limitations are creatively. Like I'm going to do this the best that I can. Right. And that's okay. And it doesn't have to compare to anybody else's. It doesn't have to be,
I guess
like
also,
Jesse's video.
I guess it's also the fact that too, it's like maybe I'm just starting off doing this. So like maybe there's no rush.
Yeah, exactly.
The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. The more you do it. And if you watch your own stuff and you think I should be better at this, that's a completely natural, healthy thing to think. It's
also too when there's a method to when I do these late season fan episodes. It's also to like take to distract me from work, but it's also like me like developing a format in my head about how I want to make a documentary, because I could theoretically make a documentary film about something like space probes or something with the limited technology I have, but I would need a better computer, a better processing system, a better camera, and all that stuff. But like I have the outline and the general flow of it mostly in my head, because I watched it from other like countless other sources. Like I would say Modern Marvels when History Channel used to be good. So like again, like I got the certificate, and like so it's it's just someone I guess one time told me it's opportunity meets something, I don't know,
necessity.
The problem,
necessity.
Yeah.
necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is when you have like people who are successful, then try to like patronize people like poor people coming out like remember the story I told you about the woman I used to know who was like, oh, it took me 15, 20 years and just before I died, like there's that patronizing part of it that I don't like.
Yeah,
You know,
those kind of people who are just like conservatives usually that I think this way just like I work for like 20 years to like get this thing, so you gotta suffer for your art. It's just like, okay, but like in that suffering, I shouldn't be starving for that suffering
Right.
as well. Yeah.
well, and also
Exactly.
too, if you're suffering, you need to have the skills ready to act, like when you get your job, right? It's like
Hmm.
there was a time where I applied for SpaceX when I started working down in Titusville where the
Oh
Kennedy
yeah,
Space Center was, because I
Mhm.
wanted to do that one time where they needed 3 years of launch experience to film a rocket, and I'm like, well, you could just train like Elon has a lot of money. Why don't you just train someone to, okay, the rocket's going up. Here's the camera. Shoot at the. It's just like, like I feel like there's a lot of untapped material that I got that I could add. I mean, you guys have seen my costume model work. It's
yeah.
pretty, yeah. I mean, it's good for like for beginners, right? But it's like I just feel like I'm not giving the resources to work with. It's just, and I think that's the problem. If you have a workforce and you don't provide them resources, they're not going to take working seriously. And then
There's also,
and
yeah,
then
there's
your only thing is them just crawling out of the tunnel like,
hmm
like on their bare hands when you had a it's I don't get it. I don't get it, but okay.
Yeah.
well, unfortunately, like white Republicans and fascists and Christian fascists in this country.
This no, no, no. This person wasn't even a Republican. You would this was a white liberal. This was one of those liberals that MLK warned about. One of those people who who said,
The white moderate. Yeah.
yeah, like, who like they'll talk about how much they hate capitalism one day, but then they'll thumb their nose at someone needing actual like actual advice and stuff to actually make themselves successful. So, there's a lot
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, and the failed athletes is another category of that kind of thing too. The George Rumpy. It's almost like how Joy the Delicious Heritage has said on Facebook a long time ago. To them, the most infuriating subcategory of humans is the know-it-all mediocre white man that thinks they know it all but really don't. Case in point, all new
Okay, if
atheists.
you're just going to personally attack me,
But that's like it. I think it's like the health. Back to the early conversation about sponsors. It's a little bit healthy to have some humility, as it were, as opposed to like thinking you're
Mhm.
absolutely great at like and I have sex, or like how some celebrities just like say you just got to like think positively and positive things will happen. That kind of like the way kind of like guru bullshit.
Yeah.
But
There's
like I think they don't realize of the structural the benefits that they have from the structural assistance that we have, that they, because they never like suffer from it, that they don't realize it. Or like all the people that like entrepreneurs that like, hey, I start from nothing, I'm really rats and rich. It's like, hey, so I start my business in my own garage. Okay, you had a garage
plus a $250,000 present from your parents. I mean,
or something like that, or you're lucky that your parents allow you to stay at their house as you're getting back on your feet. Some people don't have that as well. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I think that.
well,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
well,
Isaiah.
what I would say, I've worked jobs since 2008, so
Mhm.
15.
Yeah.
I've had a job every year, like 2 jobs every year. The job I have now, I have to walk home every night from the hospital, which is like 4 miles from my house because I don't have a car yet, which I'm getting soon. And it's like there are people out there who really work hard, and when you come up here and say, well, I had to do this, it's like, well, then you should be the most empathetic because you've been through that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
it's like
some people
capitalism and the philosophies that support it just completely inverted all morality and said that poor people deserve it. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Well, there's
go ahead.
something about like we like to view the world in a way that makes us feel like we're in control of it. And
Yes.
and most of the time that's not true, or at least
Mhm.
most of the time we don't have as much control as we think we do, or certainly
Mhm.
that we want to have. And so when a successful person is saying things like that, if like someone who's profited in industry and had a successful business, or they're like a movie star and they've become rich and famous, like no matter how good they are at what they do, and no matter how hard they work, there's always an element of luck,
Mhm.
and a lot of times, especially in business stuff, like starting from a place of advantage.
Yes.
So
It's like,
and
well, yeah, it's
and
like, like successful women who are cosplayers. It's like, well, you're also white and you're an attractive woman, so
Yes. Exactly.
yeah,
it's kind of
and I feel
what
like
helps you.
if you're not willing to acknowledge that, well, yeah, I'm, a rich famous actor or whatever, but it's not all because I'm so great. A lot of it is because I got the right break at the right time.
Yeah.
And also because just through a quirk of birth, I look a certain way, or I
Mhm.
sound a certain way, or I'm a certain body type or whatever. Like you're not, it's not all because you're awesome and you worked your ass off. Now, if you hadn't worked your ass off, you probably wouldn't have attained the same success. Like the hard work is part of it, sure.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff that's completely out of your control that you have
Yeah.
benefited from, that went into it.
Yeah,
Oh,
Aaron
but like,
Rabinowitz
Well, yeah, but
has basically
well,
said it's
say
moral
for
luck
example,
all the way down.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It's more luck all the way down. Like Anna Gorilla. Oh, douche, Anna Gorilla for sure. But like when you try to like tell Anna Gorilla that like, well, Anna Gorilla, along your way you have gotten lucky, he would go, I have dig dishes, and it's like that. He felt that he deserves the
Yeah.
empire. There's something to that he is a good broadcaster in his way, and it's like, oh god, his
And
Well,
he's very good at talking to white men about how hard it is to be
Yeah.
a white man.
He
Yes.
serves a certain function that people seem to need, like
if the mediocre white man wants to feel the thoughts of like they feel, no, I am oppressed, as it were. And
I got a 30-day ban on Facebook because I said it's almost like we hate women in this country.
like almost.
Yeah, and I regretted it so hard yesterday when I saw a thing on there from David Silverman. Responding to a post about oppression, he said, I am a heterosexual man. And I'm the most depressed because of that. You just wish you could punch someone through the internet.
That's how that works.
Well, it's also, so I think there's that. But like I don't consider myself lazy because like when I get out of bed,
Right.
which is usually
Definitely not.
around like 11 or something in the morning, I basically come to my computer. I may work on some my art that I do, and then I just work on my YouTube stuff. Like I write my scripts and stuff. So I'm not lazy in the sense that I just stay in bed or just eat corn puffs or something like that. But
well,
now
I mean-
again, I have 56 subscribers, and I started the channel like a year ago. So again, it's a work in progress, and maybe you don't have to be as flashy as other people's stuff is.
oh yeah,
Like,
I mean,
like there is a uniqueness to my channel, right? So
I have not streamed on Twitch in over a month, but just by the fact that like someone who just started the channel and has, hey Phoenix, how you doing? I hope everything's going well. And yes, give Phoenix money. I'll repost Phoenix's GoFundMe, absolutely. But like all their other links are also in charity links on page. But because I have 269 followers on Twitch, someone that has just like 26 is not yet to feel it feels like I'm a big thing, as it were. And it's like, no, if I get 10 viewers at one time, it's like, my God, I'm really successful today playing Fortnite or something like that. But like, speaking of Twitch, kind of like back to the earlier conversation, people that like kind of have to do it for their job. The Twitch streamers, Ledequin, who was a guest on the show like weeks ago, and their spouse, Nastaneko, they would love to just stream Twitch when they want to, and like just for the fun of it. And they do have fun when they stream Twitch. However, it is their jobs. They're both disabled, and luckily Nas has SSI, so that she gets like a check every month, like $750, and that's good enough to pay rent and 1 week of food. And Leonard Quinn has been tried to apply for like a disability times and hasn't been approved. This is Disability Wrath Month as well. So just like
disability, I would quit my hospital job if I get
It's-
enough and look for another job.
I'm just reminded of Robin Aspirin, an author I read. I think it was in foreword and afterword to one of his books. And it doesn't matter how much you love it. When you have to get up and do it, whether you want to or not, it's work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the flip side of, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Well, yeah, you will. Like, that's something we need to stop telling people that. We need to stop telling people, just find something you love and you'll never work a day. And like, no, there will be days when it feels like work. Trust me. Like there'll be days, no matter what your job, no matter how much you love it. Cause I mean, I love making YouTube videos. I love writing. I love getting in front of the camera.
Yeah. I love working mom.
Yeah. There are days when it's work and it doesn't matter how much I love it. It's work and I don't want to do it, or there's other stuff I'd rather do, or I'd rather stay in bed or whatever. Like there's always going to be times where it's going to feel like work. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not someone who just wants to stay in bed. Like I need to do something just for kicks. I guess I'm just that kind of person. So yeah, I mean, there's that.
Well, that's it. Go ahead.
But if I had like Steve or someone, like if I had people that were near me who were into like video stuff, I could theoretically, we can make like YouTube, like, like I guess like YouTube movies or something, because I do have props.
I used to have one, but I gave mine away to someone who was a big Star Trek fan, so they loved it as well. So,
I have a shit ton of props. So I have a functioning tricorder. I think we've all seen that. So
I think you showed it off on CHI's Patreon hangout too. As well.
Yeah.
That's totally cool. As Emily Chambers says in the chat, lazy is able to start talking because it's because so many Republicans and other like conservatives would like believe that like people that are applying for like disability or something like that are like welfare queens and like are just being lazy, and
which is also racism talking. But,
the welfare queen thing, totally. Yeah,
it was just one woman, and she was a white woman, but it became this whole thing as a euphemism for black people, because that Reagan was really smart enough that you can't just say outright black people or the other people.
We've worked this country for free for 400 years. Shit, I don't mind sitting my ass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, get to work, Whitey.
The 10 most dangerous words in the English language are: I'm from the government and I'm here to help black people.
Yeah.
Which, if you count, you might think that's 11 words, not 10. And no, he didn't actually say black people, and his audience certainly didn't hear 2 words there.
Well, again, they never really define what the government is to them, because it's like and we're seeing this now, of course, where Republicans will constantly say they're against big government, but then they run for government, they work in government,
that's just a lie. They're just lying.
Their supporters join the military, which is the government. So they love government. It's the idea of government helping other people they don't like, but they love government to the T.
Yeah, the Republican, the white supremacist voting base of the Republican Party was totally in favor of social safety net until civil rights meant black people could get to it.
And besides, Ronald Reagan was completely wrong, because the 9 scariest words in the English language are not "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." They are "I'm pregnant and I'm pretty sure it's yours." It's way scarier.
Talk about people who cannot take responsibility.
It's like, oh God, what?
I think with YouTube, I'm getting there. It's just gonna take time. Now, one thing that I don't do, that I see like a lot of people on Instagram like brag about, is like, if it ain't about money, don't talk to me. It's like, I know I'll never be rich. At least I don't think I will. So
I don't want to be rich.
I don't work towards making a lot of money. I like if I find a job where I can, fine, but I am not going to kill myself working a shit job and wasting my life in the here and now to get something that I may not even get. So if you think that's cool on Instagram, where you can put that shit on there and be like, "Oh, I'm cool," it's like, nah. I see a miserable person in there.
Joe
I
McClory
kind of
has a
wish
good
I could
point.
be a bank robber.
As Joe McClory has a good point that like also more money is stolen from the system by the people in charge of like means testing than those like abusing the system through the user base. Yes, like Tabitha Wolfus still has like the appeal hanging over her head of like they could take away her disability if they decide like no, she's able to work. So many people have like that issue is that like, oh, but no. It's not disability. You're just depressed. So find a psychiatrist and you can go back to work.
Yeah. That's one of the things that is the most infuriating to me is that, you know, Republicans in this country have marketed their opposition to welfare programs by saying like, look, if people really need the assistance, then we don't begrudge them, but we just don't want people to take advantage of it, you know? And then you look at like Department of Labor statistics and realize that like social welfare programs, the fraud level is incredibly low. Like it's not, those programs are not losing that much money because
so much
people
shame attached to
are
this shit that
scamming
people
them.
are under applying for it.
Yeah, exactly. There are people,
it's mostly poor white people too.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There are people when I worked the last time I had a proper job, I worked at I worked maintenance at a truck stop, and there were so many people that I knew who were white people who were either of my economic level or maybe a bit below, who lived in trailer parks or were in their 20s and 30s and lived with their parents or lived in temporary housing or whatever. And, you know, and yet were hardcore conservative Republican voters, even though they're voting for people that, if they had the ability, would take away whatever safety net they had, you know, like it makes no sense. But you pitch it as, well, if you get it, then you probably deserve it. But those other people over there, they're you know, they're gold brick it. They don't really deserve it. You know, it's that kind of thing.
What do you guys think about the lottery? Because apparently there was like a $1 billion lottery.
Yeah, the Mega
And somebody won, apparently. Yeah, somebody won.
Okay, so I did play the lottery. I did play scratch tickets. Even though I'm a poker, I knew full well that like the odds were against me. My older sibling actually challenged me on this, and it was the thrill of winning as well. Even though I was playing poker at the time, that there's at least some skill to playing poker, and that's exhilarating when you do win in playing poker or win a big bluff or a big pot, as it were. But like, so there's that. They do it for that thrill. And so it's that sort of thing. Ooh, I won, and then, but also, unfortunately, a lot of people think that the only sure way to get rich, which is what a lot of people dream, and yet people also believe that I work hard enough, work my nose to the grindstone, someday I could be the CEO of the company. Even the CEO of Chase Morgan Bank says that like any one of his bank tellers could possibly be a CEO of their own company, and it's just like, but no, it's like, okay, but it's not true for everyone that's a bank teller for Chase Morgan Bank at all the locations. And that's where it's like, okay, there's 1% at McDonald's and then 30 people as shift workers. There's not all of those 30 people can become the manager of that McDonald's or other McDonald's, because like there's always going to be people at the top as a hierarchy that way.
That's capitalism.
Now, would this be weird if so we're talking about the lottery, and then I was thinking about the chances of you winning, and then my brain cut to Stephen Hawking saying the chance of you winning the lottery is quite low.
Here's the thing. Like I said, I play poker. And this is a casual question that like the mainstream media, when they're asking people who are going to the final table of the World Series Poker main event, so have you ever got dealt a royal flush? Yes, I have. But statistically, you're more likely to have a meteorite land in your backyard than be dealt a royal flush in poker. and it only happened once. And yes, I did win that hand because of course, but I was going to win that hand anyway. I was all in before the flop. But like the lottery, it's a tax on the dumb. Your odds of winning any money, at least for watching a safe lottery, is 1 in 7. So you're spending, at most you're going to spend $7 to get $1 back. So it's just like,
so it's a losing proposition unless you are one of the very few very lucky ones.
I played the lottery a couple weeks ago, and I thought I won 10 grand, and the ticket was $1. So, but I didn't win 10 grand, but I did win $1 back for the dollar that I spent.
And that keeps you coming. That's keep you coming back, keep you coming back, keep you coming back. Just like with casinos.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that casinos put everything they have into craps and blackjack. Because you play those perfectly, the odds are slightly less than 50% that you'll win, which maximizes the high when you're playing.
Why don't we just pay people a good living wage and build affordable? No, we don't want to do that. Okay,
let's eliminate the concept of wages entirely. Just
that's what I said when I think I've talked about this before. Like there was an interview that Jeff Bezos gave a couple years ago where they were talking about Blue Origin, and they were like, Jeff, why start a and they were like, why start a space company? And he said, well, because space travel is the only thing big enough for all this money that I have. And my first reaction was, you could pay the fucking people to work for you more, Jeff. Like, I bet if you did that, you might even have enough left over. You could still do the space thing if you wanted.
You could solve world hunger, you piece of shit.
you don't like. There's all kinds of shit to spend money on, Jeff. You don't need to. We have NASA already, dude. We don't need you. We don't need you to start a space company.
Well, it's like I just don't get that like obscene hoarding of wealth. I don't know. And then
it's writing on the scoreboard.
And then I had people who like defended and say, well, they create jobs. I'm like, well, the prison industry creates jobs too.
Oh, they love that.
And I mean, and it's like, sure, he creates jobs, and then he doesn't let his employees unionize, and he doesn't pay them a fair wage, and he works them, 12-hour shifts and doesn't let them have bathroom breaks. And
they die on the floor of their warehouses, and the employees are told to just walk around the corpse and continue working and don't shut down the operation because, like,
can he afford to create some better jobs? Or create a few more so that the people that he has don't have to work that hard. I mean, there's ways he could be doing this better. If the reason we're supposed to be happy that he has all that money is that he creates jobs. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
No. I don't buy people who are like successful and they say they work hard and this, and then they're just like my age, because I would tell you I work my ass off a lot. Either I'm just not lucky or I'm just a lazy ass, and I sure as hell don't think I'm a lazy ass. So
again, I'm sure you're not. I mean, it's not. It's not just about hard work.
Right. Well, again, with the lazy thing too, is like a lot of people get like attributed to be like lazy. There was like a Medium article I read by a professor of psychology at a university, professor of psychology, as it were, and he did not start. He maybe started out thinking like some of his students were lazy, but no. If any of his students was like not doing well in the course or like failing the courses, he would actually, if he at the time interviewed them personally, off to the side. Is something going wrong? Are you fine as work? And it turns out a lot of times it's like depression, or they just got a nasty breakup, or a death in the family, or something else is happening that's preoccupying their minds and preoccupying their time. So that's why they don't do well in the courses. It's not laziness, it's something emotional is happening or something in their head that they never realized was a thing. And what that professor was horrified to see is his other colleagues in the same department, psychology, were saying that it's like, oh no, they're just lazy. I'm going to fail them in this course because like they didn't do the work or something like that. And it's like that whole thing of like, you're just lazy, get over it and go to work. You don't need disability. Or it's like, look, you fill out all these forms correctly. It shows that you have like the accolades to get working. So go out and find a job. And then there's also
you can still go to school. You can still go to high school. You can still get a good GPA. I got a 3.2 when I finished community college, and you still may not get anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's not that you didn't do anything. It's just maybe the system wasn't set up to help people don't want to listen to that. They want this.
And also,
I
all
mean,
those
they
rich
literally
people.
set up the system so that there's more people than there are jobs. It's
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's because of the the reserve army of labor, as it were, or the poverty is there intentionally as a feature of capitalism to force people to coerce them into working for those city jobs at the low wages, and also it incentivizes them to do that because, like, again, my dad, when I started complaining about my job and how low I'm paying, he pointed to a homeless person and said, "I bet he's having a great life." And so that homeless person is there as an example. If I don't do my job,
homelessness
I couldn't
is a
have like
threat.
that.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
And also it's like a lot of people like think about this like a David, a co-host of like from Many People Strikes, Corey Johnson's other podcast about Saskatchewan politics. He's always thinks that like it makes financial sense if like you just give people homes. It costs less money for a city to do that, to just give homeless people homes and not spend that money on like the policing. That's where he doesn't realize that is not the point. And also, capitalists don't collectively, they sometimes collectively do things, but they don't collectively do things for their own collective interest. They do it for their own self-interest of like, no, this is my property. This is my investment. No one should like live here. I bought this cheap, super cheap on the 2008 crash. I'm going to like renovate it and sell it for boo-goo bucks once the market gets big and buy and sell high, that sort of thing. And they only think about that, not for like these houseless mothers could use that home to be able to like house their families and like take care of themselves. But then it's just like no, they're trespassing. We have to evict them. That's not their property, as it were. Which is why I always like encourage people like, even though it's illegal, and sorry, Freak Regulation 46A, no uncoded messages over open channels. It is illegal to squat a home that you do not own, but I totally and have no problem with people doing it. I should not encourage it, but I totally have no problem with people doing that.
Well, I mean, why would you? Like, I mean, morally, they're like, it's one of those things like when there's a big street protest and there might be some incidental property damage. And I know there's like people on, people on the right. They're like, what about that guy's store? They broke that guy's window or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, all right, look, I'm sure it sucks and it's an inconvenience, but am I really supposed to be more pissed off about that than, the guy that the cops killed that was who was the reason they were out there in the first place? Like, it's just, it's insane. Yeah. I mean, I know that's their answer. Yeah. But what about that guy's money? Well, I don't care about that guy's money. Like, why do you care about that guy's money? He's not sharing it with you.
The Starbucks window is insured anyway.
This was just in your Elon Musk video too, Steve.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like with the cult around Elon Musk is a lot like that. And really, anybody who like any working class or less than wealthy person, even who like rushes to defend a super wealthy person whenever they're challenged or criticized or whatever, it's like, what are you doing? Why are you carrying water for this billionaire who doesn't give a shit about you?
They just like in Fry and Futurama. Fry, you're not rich. No, I'm not. But when I get rich, the poor people better watch their back.
And a lifetime of propaganda has an impact.
I think what it is it's a lot of immaturity on those people's part, because they're like, the way people like Elon Musk is like the way like I guess like girls would like a boy band or something. It reminds me a lot of that, or the way like like a fictional like superhero or something, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's that.
People think he's actually Tony Stark. Like,
right.
People think he's a real life Tony Stark.
There's that
and he's
childish, like
yeah,
geeky nerd part of people that are into that, and that just never was me, right? Like, I mean, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, as we obviously know, but I mean, I don't worship William Shatner.
Yeah, there are people on Twitter every day who say, like, with no hint of irony or sarcasm in their voice, I wish people would just get off Elon Musk's back so he could get humanity to Mars.
Okay.
Like,
here's the problem.
Like, you seriously believe that if we would just stop bothering Elon Musk and just let him do whatever he wanted, we'd be walking on Mars in a few years. Like, you seriously believe that?
Hey, he smoked weed on Joe Rogan. He's cool. It's all like that. Okay, but
Yeah.
Elon Musk also said that, like, we'll coup whoever we want, deal with it, in response to, like, someone who mentioned about the Bolivian coup in 2019, as it were, because
failed coup.
No, the 2019 one that was successful because unhoused like Evo Morales at the mask party, and like that's how Anya got in there as an interim like president, as it were, who was responsible for like the slaughter of the protesters in protest of that coup, who's actually finally getting like charges of crimes against humanity on. So that's good news there.
Well,
It's weird how those communists keep on having law and order.
You were saying, Isaiah?
Well, the thing about Elon going to Mars is, if we want to look at this from a serious, like, actual space travel standpoint, he doesn't have like a ship. That can go to Mars. Right? He has like these
Step one.
and he has this like thing called Starship. But if you watch like movies like The Martian, that's probably what we're going to probably have.
Yeah.
I mean,
unless
and Mars is not a place we should want to go. There's nothing there.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing about the Mars thing specifically is, like, as much as I despise it, I get the space tourism thing of like shooting people into suborbital flights.
I wish we could shoot Elon Musk into space,
like Jeff Bezos is doing. I mean, because you know, it's a relatively short flight. It's a short trip. You can go up and come back down, and you know, Mars. It takes, you know, like if you leave at the right time of year, it takes like a year and a half to get to Mars. So this is not something that people are going to just take as like a pleasure cruise of like, you know, hey, let's go to Mars. It'll be fun. Like, that's not the way it's going to work. It's like a multi-year
along
commitment.
the way. We have no way to shield you from radiation.
Yeah.
Where the orbits of the planets are the closest, like the parent, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more complicated than,
speed, fuel, things like that. Like, I may be a janitor, but I know a thing or two about mechanics.
It was difficult for us to get to the moon, and that's relatively close, and we can easily predict where it's going to be, and it's a short trip. Yeah,
and I mean, getting to the moon in 1969 took 3 days to get there.
Yes,
you know,
and they thought they were going to die. They had speeches prepared.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's
so
what First Man did over Apollo 13. First Man actually had that speech scene where
Nixon had a speech.
Right.
Yeah, Nixon had a speech prepared in case they didn't make it. Because of course he did, because nobody knew. Like, it's like nobody. It's not like, oh, they'll land on the moon and I'm sure everything will be fine. No, we didn't know. It was crazy.
You're risking your life going up into space anyway, because Apollo 1 that would have the like fire in the cockpit doesn't work.
That before it even took off, absolutely, it was just a test. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. So like,
absolutely, it wasn't even so yeah, this idea of, well, we'll go to Mars and it'll be like this commercial thing. No, I don't think it will. At least not in our lifetime. I mean, maybe eventually it might get built up to that point where there's some viable commercial reason to go, but not
after I build my underwater resort, hotel, casino, marine biology laboratory. I'm going to build the same thing on the moon, and then I'll stop.
At least the underwater
we need to go.
At least underwater hotel makes sense to me. But like, as you were saying, Isaiah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was saying the only way I can see is getting to Mars like quick, like in the way Musk sees it as. Like the shuttles from Star Trek, like those little like personnel shuttles they take to the different ships. That's the only
transport shuttles.
If you could go there in like a few minutes and it's not that big of a deal, of course, let's put resorts on Mars. That will be great. But I mean, you really expect even super rich people who can afford to pay for the trip out of their own pocket, are they really going to sign up for like a 3-year space trip? I don't think so.
I mean, let's remember. Elon Musk was like said like, just lay out the plan, tell me how much this costs, and I will give the money to UN to end world hunger. And someone said, oh, it only takes $7 billion, and here's the plan to lay it out. That's all right. Yeah, there you go.
He did nothing.
Where's the check? And it's like, and then he went to decide to spend $45 million or offer the bid out Twitter.
And then he decided he didn't want to do that.
Yes, because he wants to get full control over Twitter. That he
And
thought
because
he
he's
could.
so
He was like-
stupid, he can't do that either.
Oh.
He can't not buy Twitter at this point without costing him.
It's
It's
yeah,
amazing.
it's gonna cost him more to not buy Twitter because
They made a deal. Yeah.
Well,
It
They,
was
they
just
might
like
actually
it's-
be able to force him to buy it. I think I can't remember.
it's not that different from Donald Trump. It's that he is so bad at the thing he's supposed to be great at. You know, it's like all of his apologists and champions are like, oh, but you know, if they would just let him do the thing he's good at, he doesn't seem like he's good at the thing he's good at.
No, Donald Trump is
You know?
so bad. His casino. How do you have a casino fail?
Yeah.
He's
Atlantic
like
City.
the worst businessman. He's the worst
And
businessman.
he surrounds himself with incompetent morons. It took them 3 tries to get the Muslim ban in place. When liberal lawyers were saying this is something that is fully within his power to do, and they fucked it up twice.
It's like you were planning this during the campaign. You didn't have this sorted out. You know?
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't think rich people know how society works. I don't think they do.
unfortunately, when you're like when you are in charge, I think it's like a lot of people like think that socialists just like hate all people that are rich or like just own like more stuff than like them. Okay, and this is like I'm re-listening to like Donna Everything by David Ringo and David Graeber, and like one of some of the like indigenous Americans like King Creole for the win out. These intellectuals will argue with Europeans when they did actually make this, where it's just like, okay, but the thing is, like, yeah, the reason why we don't have laws, that's not true. The Windac did have laws, is that like someone owning more stuff should not have power over others, and that's the socialist and communist critiques of like capitalism. Whereas like it's not that someone is rich, is that when someone has like in charge of the modes of production and be able to control those modes of production, as where they have power over the workers, and that power in itself, a boss worker, is unjust, and that's why we criticize those things. And that's our problem with like rich people, is when they can just like buy warehouses, buy a entire island, buy a website, or just like and get control of these things. And
Well, the thing about rich people is they don't want the competition, even though people aren't really trying to compete with them. They believe that if they give poor people money to make themselves more successful, there's this idea that they're going to try to compete with me and dethrone me, even though that's not really true. Many people just want to have money so they can pay their bills, get a better job, and probably like do something that they like that's probably less bad. So yeah, it's that idea of I don't want like it's competition. I don't, you know, like that's one of the reasons.
There was
why...
a study recently. I don't know where or by whom, but I heard about it on the Serious Inquiries Only Thomas Smith podcast. Sociologists did a lot of research, and they found that a lot of people are very zero-sum game thinking. That no matter how you put it, you know, it's like if you start out unequal, and you make the two groups more equal by giving your group more money, giving the other group even more than that. They instead choose to make it more equal by giving both groups less. It's
that's the Andrew Yang's his solution to like universal basic income. Just cut all those programs, and here's $2,000 a month. You don't got Medicare, you don't got Medicaid, you don't got like disability services, SSI. Just $2,000. Good luck. And no, nothing about like caps on rent or anything like that.
Yeah,
either,
you give people $2,000 a month free, then rent everywhere goes up by $2,000 a month. I mean,
well, it's just like it's like in the 90s when Steve Forbes was saying we should have a flat tax instead of graduated income tax. We should just have a flat tax, and it's like, okay, that sounds good if you don't think about it very hard. But if people who are worth billions of dollars are paying the same tax as people who are working for a living, that's not really fair. You know, like even if, that's not really fair.
Sales tax are regressive. Because
absolutely.
It's because like the rich people
when you actually have to work for a living, you don't get to save any money. So you're spending all your money. So. Yeah,
and also rich people do not like buy 300 or 400 or 500 times as much as like the working class people do or the middle class people do. And it's on from the poor people and working class people that buy more. The Vimes theory of boots, as it were, when you can only afford the $50 cheap boots, as it were, that only last 6 months, as it were, you're gonna buy those boots again and next every 6
That's
months,
actually separate from sales, or I mean, it's related to it. But Vimes theory is actually also called the ghetto tax. It's just that you actually have to spend more money being poor.
Yes,
yeah.
you cannot buy in bulk and save money by getting like the jumbo pack of toilet paper. You have to get just the one package of toilet paper because that's what you can afford right now.
And you have to buy the cheap boots that wear out. You can't buy things that'll last and work for years.
So the poor people and working people disproportionately, the tax burden is disproportionate on them. They pay more of their income on taxes compared to like rich people and just sales taxes, as it were. And it's easy for me to do my taxes when I live in Washington State because there's no state tax. Okay, just another tax I don't have to deal with. But another thing with the tax problem is that like it used to be 36%. Trump made it to like 20%, and I don't know what it is like now, but it used to be like 94% for the top bracket, and like in FDR's time, and it has
during one of the and it was like that even into the 50s and the 60s during one of the most economically prosperous periods in the history of the country. The top tax bracket was in the 90s,
and we were in a much poorer country then.
Yeah.
What were we saying, Isaiah?
No, I was saying Eisenhower, his tax.
Well, that was before Republicans became the party of white supremacy.
Yeah, before Nixon.
That was
as a
under
word. Before Barry Gray. Eisenhower before the Republicans became the party that
they were still the party of big business, but they were basically the Democrats in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So nowadays, the Republicans represent the short-term interests of capitalism, of billionaires. The Democrats represent the long-term interests of billionaires.
We now do only 90-minute shows, so we only got like about 7 minutes or 10 minutes and stuff like that. We won't keep you for like 2 hours, as it were. You can at any time, you can say like I have to go, but like if John Brockman has like the gym to go to, so we only got like about 7-10 minutes, as it were. So it's like
I do want to say that I am glad that I found a group of people to talk to. I'm glad.
Oh, that's all.
I'm glad to be with you guys for your 200th show and to many, many more.
Honestly, we haven't talked much about like this show because like John Brockman, this was your thing that you were just like produce like 30 minutes podcast episodes and just yell into the void about this, that, and the other thing.
And now it's just a chance for us to sit and undergo group therapy.
But yes, exactly. Because like you didn't have content for like 2 weeks, and the second week you just invite me on. It's like, hey, what do you want to talk about? Hey, I just saw RoboCop. I want to talk about that. I talk about social justice and like politics, but sure, we can talk about RoboCop for 30 minutes.
Sure, whatever.
But then it's like we then invited Lichano on next week. How's Lichano doing? She's suffering. It's like, but
she's
like
not in great shape right now. She's.
I'm sorry to hear that.
She has,
in addition to the existing pain issues, she got diagnosed with diabetes, right?
Type 2 diabetes. Yes, she just got diagnosed with it. And speaking of like, the socialist communist paradise of France, she has to work. Essentially, as far as I know. And so I was like, and like we were saying before, and the Disability Pride Month, as Electrano is pan romantic and asexual, it's like, forcing disabled people to work because means testing, as a word. Just like, and something I also criticize some of the Democrats for doing as well. It's just like they could do so much more. I wish they could do so much more. That's like
there's so much. It has infected so much of progressive discourse in this country. You really, if you stop and look at it, you realize how much supposedly left-leaning progressive people have allowed Republicans and right-wingers to define their thinking on things, like the idea of
further to the right.
They're like, they keep chasing Republican votes, and it drives me absolutely off my fucking nut. It's like, stop trying to get Republicans to vote for you. It's not. it's not going to work, and it's only going to make fewer. It's only going to make fewer people on the left want to vote for you. Like
that's been a thing since forever. Back in the 20s, the Republican Party pursued what they called the Lily White plan, purging black people from the upper ranks of the Republican Party in an attempt to win white Southern votes.
Yeah.
Well,
and the thing, I mean, in my lifetime, I blame I blame, it's like the Bill Clinton effect, because, and I mean, for all of the shitty things he did and for all of the bad things about him as a person, Clinton, at least domestically, was not a terrible president, and he was a very popular president, and he won by doing that triangulation thing where he'd be like, I'm going to set a course for the middle, and enough liberals and enough reasonable moderates and conservatives will vote for me that I'll win that way, right? And ever since then,
but that's also 1992 where Ross Perot actually took a lot of votes.
That's true. But he won. But you know, he won re-election in '96 pretty easily too. But ever since then, it's like Democrats feel like that's the only way they can win national elections. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like they try to do, no matter how far to the right the other candidate is, no matter how, you know, popular their progressive agenda is, it's like they keep trying to aim for the middle and to try and get like undecideds and right wingers to vote for them because they think, well, Bill Clinton did that and he was a good president. But that was 30 years ago, man. It's not the same. And there's other ways to win elections. You don't have to do it just the same way that Bill Clinton did. You know, but it's like they can't break out of that mode.
Bill Gates.
Well, I wish Democrats would actually go and like hammer people like the Republican Party is the party of fascism. Talk about the fact that DeSantis my governor wanted a police force for voting. You have so much. You have so much ammunition to throw at these people, but you don't want to do it because you don't want to be extreme or wild.
Because they're afraid of what they're
fucking extreme already.
There's people every day on Twitter that I pull my hair out. They say like, well, you know, you can't hit them too hard. You can't go after them too hard because, or you can't propose, you know, something that's too radical or too progressive because then the Republicans will have a field day. Well, let them say whatever the fuck they want. Who cares?
Be a fucking socialist.
They
who wants a police force for voting machines. You can't get any more radical than that.
I cannot count the number of times during President Obama's term where I heard right-wing radio hosts call him not just a socialist, not just a communist, but specifically a Stalinist. Barack Obama.
Glenn Beck's entire thing is calling Democrats both Stalinists and Nazis.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do. Like, you know, if Barack Obama's a Stalinist, then just don't worry about what they think of you. You know, like.
And so, so like someone's like suggested, why don't you talk to conservatives, American conservatives, so like fascists? It's like, okay, I've been in a conservative like Twitter DM group one time, and I just hate it there because of the transphobic memes there. And I later questioned my gender. There was also racism there. And this is why a black friend of mine left. And it's just like, no, I'll leave with my black friend. Fuck this racism. But then also, like,
but they do have a joke.
One joke. Yes.
Tell that joke, you know.
Yes, but it's like I say, Trump's a white supremacist, as it were. Oh, you must love the Biden's in office, as it were. Motherfucker, I have a lot of criticism of Biden. You should.
I voted for Biden to get rid of Trump. Otherwise, I fucking hate him.
Yes. I'm a communist. I hate Biden too, as it were. Oh, so you must want to be things like the USSR and was like, I'm not a Stalinist. I'm in the same place.
I voted for King Kong to stop Godzilla from destroying the city. It doesn't mean that I'm like a huge King Kong fan.
He probably wants to be the Nazi, so I mean.
Yes, but also like. A comrade of mine is like also an anarchist because they conflate like communist, like Barack Obama to be. Oh yeah, I didn't vote for Biden either. Blame me for like whatever, but I didn't vote for Biden. I live in Washington State, so the state was going to go for Biden anyway, so I voted for Howie Hawkins. There was other socialists on the ballot that I wanted to vote for.
If they run another Trump, that's not a calculus you can be certain on, because I mean, Pacific Northwest is loaded with Klansmen.
That's true. But
And if they send somebody out who excites the Klan the way Trump did, then I mean that's like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all those other states. Trump only won them by like 10,000 votes, and more than that went for Jill Stein. So it's not. I don't think that's a calculus that you can make anymore. It's not a safe bet.
I don't know. Well, I made my vote. Whatever. Damn, what was the point I was going to go to? It's
You
like,
hate
oh
Biden.
yeah, okay. So, comrade, who's an anarchist, was like, because of like Barack Obama being a socialist and communist, they think of my anarchist friend as a liberal, and just like me, it's like, don't call me a liberal. Don't call me a liberal.
I love, just every once in a while getting on Twitter and tweeting at somebody, like, podcast person, I'm a leftist. As a leftist, me, you're not a leftist.
or so it's like the first or second episode of Embrace the Void. Aaron Bennett was like co-host, like I forgot his name, but he said like if the future
Thomas
is
Smith.
Star Trek. No, that's Philosophers in Space. I'm talking about the Embrace the Void co-host.
Embrace the Void. Aaron Rubin is alone on Embrace the Void.
No, he has a co-host. No, well, okay, but anyway, the other guy that's on Embrace the Void, he said, if the future is like Star Trek, I'm all for that then. But if the future is communism, I'm not for that. I was like, what do you think Star Trek is?
How close to Star Trek do we have to get? Because there's a lot of parts of Star Trek that ain't happening. I hate to tell everybody. But so how close to Star Trek do we have to get?
Wait, was that warp drive? Oh man.
Right, exactly. Like transporters, warp drive. I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for those. But I mean, maybe some of the.
Not even food replicators either. But
probably not.
Well, Earth is a spaceship, so we are traveling. I mean,
we can replicate food. It just takes a year.
Yeah, you just have to wait.
The only thing I want out of Star Trek, outside the advancement of human society, is I do want the holodeck. I think that's probably the most realistic thing.
We definitely need the points.
I could see something like the holodeck existing at some point. Yeah.
We already got VR, and yes, there's VR porn.
Right.
There's and also like for like
the hard constructs are a little bit more iffy, but
yeah. Exactly. But like with the flashlights are like special kind of flashlights that will interact with certain interactive videos on Pornhub, as it were. So it's like we have pieces there. It's just like again hard strong. That's a very tricky thing, as it were. So like, and honestly,
probably be able to build bodysuits that will interact.
I honestly don't think that like all humanity will end, because like sometimes all it takes is something else to come out for like people to have interest in that thing. Like when Fallout 4 came out, the Pornhub traffic dropped dramatically. So it's like, remember,
somebody designs a new holodeck game and people stop fucking on the holodeck and start killing on the holodeck.
Right, exactly. Sometimes a lot of times it's like they're bored, so just go to Pornhub. Pornhub's a terrible site though. Or other kind of porn on the internet, but if they found something else that takes their interest, that's what they do.
As Robin Williams once said, if we can't fuck it, we'll kill it.
I think that's a good note to end on, as it were, with Robin Williams quote.
May he rest in peace. Yeah. His wisdom for the ages.
I just ordered a pizza. I'm about to watch Star Trek Enterprise, and then
the best of the Star Treks.
The best of the Star Treks to star Scott Bakula, at least.
And it had the greatest series finale. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, everybody agrees on that. Everybody agrees it had the best series finale.
Oh, and the best.
I don't know anything about Star Trek, but I know your opinions.
Everybody loves the last episode of Enterprise.
I'm gonna work on my YouTube videos later.
So yes. Speaking of YouTube, Steve, you are a YouTuber, aren't you?
I sure am. YouTube.com/Steve Shives. If you want to see more of me than you could ever possibly want to see.
You do some podcasts, don't you?
I do. I am. Yes, and there's fanfic for one of them, thanks to Isaiah. I co-host the Late Seating podcast with my buddy Jason Harding, and Jason and I, along with Dana Cole, also are on the Star Trek comedy parody podcast, The Ensign's Log, and that's part of the Late Seating family of podcasts.
And then, of course, Paramount
I
came
told
along
you
and stole that and made Lower Decks.
That's right. Lower Decks is our show without the jokes. It's just they said instead of writing jokes, let's just put references to old Star Trek shows in it instead of jokes.
Well, they did have an orgy. I don't think you had an orgy.
That's what we haven't gotten to the that was corporate espionage. They found out we were planning a big orgy episode and they just beat us to it. I think that's how that went. So
I told you
they beat you off.
I mean,
Yes. What do you say?
No, saying I also made like a fanfic episode of where like you guys talked about The Blind Side and how much you hated that movie.
Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Some of these are just like I want to get them as angry as I can, so I'll pick the most horrible movie.
The most patronizing fucking.
Wait, I don't think you showed it last week. You finished your fan art of Jesse Gender, and you haven't showed it on this show yet.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you showed.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of it. This is what it looks like.
Yes, yes, the fan art of Jesse Gender with the same outfit that she had on the thumbnail for the Gene Roddenberry Sex and Star Trek video. As if she's like,
but as Kate Winslet from Titanic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rose from Titanic.
Rose.
I feel like we need to have like a raggedy saxophone playing when you show that picture.
So or just have the saxophone from like Kara's Whispers playing.
I didn't know.
Oh, there you go.
That's a sax solo.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sax solo right there, buddy. That's a sax solo.
Did they a few more points and then I'll shut up.
Yes.
Did they have saxophones back in 1912?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and secondly, for either my birthday or Christmas, I want to get the 350 Titanic model. And I'm gonna make a YouTube video about like going into like laborious detail.
I was wondering.
That was it. That was it.
What the hell?
Now I'm gonna have to listen to that song when this show is over. Now you've put it in my head. I'm gonna be like, I need that George
you get
Michael
to play with
fix,
Batman
man.
and Catwoman while you do it.
Oh, there you go. I'm never gonna dance again.
People just rewatch Deadpool. It's in the ending credit sequence of
Oh,
Deadpool.
yes.
That's a great movie too.
Oh, that was such a
Absolutely.
sweet romantic story.
Yes. So anyway,
Yeah, for real.
Thank you, Steve, for joining us. Isaiah Taylor has like his own like YouTube channel of like sinister intelligence, but also Isaiah Taylor has an Instagram. So check out the cosplay. Check out his like a cool engine lamp like that he talked about this word that he did bought. And it's not against
stuff that I do.
And it's not against socials for him to like buy a luxury item like that. Absolutely. So check out Isaiah Taylor's like Instagram there. Charity links up.
Apartment so I can actually like build, so I can actually have more lighting because my apartment is like 450 square feet, so that is small.
Also tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific on the Fluid Voice channel, Isaiah Taylor is a guest on the Fluid Voice. So check out Isaiah Taylor there.
Channel mod,
Dark.
although who isn't a channel mod here, Ozma in the Dark.
Yes, and like Christy Abbey too, and others. And so check that out. Of course, also charity links page. It is disabled intersectional Wrath Month this month. Today's last day, but it's always Wrath Month for all the queers anyway, and all the disabled people. So please, charity links page. It's not mutual aid, it's charity, but still, it can really help out some people. Like Phoenix, who's in the chat right now. Their links are in charity links page. Jordan Roberts, links are in charity links page. So please, yes, thank you, Emily Chambers, for posting the link to tonight's Fluid Voices in the live chat right now. And it's like Summer and Geek on YouTube, Summer and Geek on Twitch, Summer and Geek on Twitter. I might eventually do something with those things. I at least post things on Twitter. I might go back. Actually, this is the first day off. I finally had a conversation at work about my excessive hours. I mentioned my pay, so maybe that's something about that. But like, I actually thank you, Farmer, for showing up for the very final minutes of the show. But finally, I cannot. I was qualified for overtime on Saturday, not for Sunday, so I can't come into work on Sunday. Work 5 hours of overtime. I actually have a day off, so maybe in the future I'll be doing more on my YouTube channel and the Twitch channel. And John Brockman, you're part of another podcast, aren't you?
Yes, Dungeons and Debacles, and we did not record this week because somebody didn't show up. It was disappointing. So we just talked about stuff.
Okay, had a good time.
We're saving the world from an evil red dragon cult.
If you guys want to know how I became a socialist, I had a really bad, and I'll make this really quick. I had a really bad toothache back in 2015 when Bernie Sanders was becoming president, when he was running for president, and I had a frat boy who was a roommate who lived right across the way from me, who said, "I don't want Bernie Sanders to tax my dad, so I'm gonna help you pull your tooth out." Basically, like, yeah, there's the poor guy. Sorry. And then when he finally moved out of the apartment, he completely trashed the common area and his apartment. And you know what's funny about it? His dad paid for everything. So yeah, fuck it, people.
So he taxed his dad by being stupid. Nice.
All right.
All right, and with that, we will go ahead and say goodbye. Bye-bye,
Goodbye,
everybody.
Practice self-care.
It's so hard to say goodbye.
Hello.